we're live on YouTube, and yeah, I'll be talking about how did I get into Silicon Valley? Why did I go there? And then how am I shifting that mindset from living and working in Silicon Valley to living and working here in Austin? So let's get started. And thank you to my Cloudflare friends who are here tonight, and the Cloudflare friends of my friends who are here to support. Cool. Oh, what? What's happening? This presentation has just been taken over by the gift master. So tonight, my presentation or my talk, it's all gonna be about gifts. And I'm gonna be sharing and relating the Silicon Valley mindset applied to Silicon Hills with gifts. So hope you enjoy it. So Austin, you may be wondering, why is this guy here, right? Like what brought me here? And I'm originally born and raised in Mexico, and growing up, my dream was to become a professional soccer player. Any of you all wanted to become professional athletes or play soccer? We got one here in the front, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it seems like we were sold into that idea when we were young, or I was sold into that idea when I was younger. Can you go back to the previous one? Because it jumped one. But growing up, I remember the moment when I was like, okay, so how am I gonna be a pro, right? I was like 15 years old. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, and I was like, okay, how do I become a pro? I didn't know anyone who has become a professional athlete. I was born and raised in Mexico, in Chihuahua, and at that time I have not played on a grass field. All the games that I played to that day were played on dirt fields. And I remember our coach, the warm-up was, okay guys, so for warm-up you're gonna pick up all the rocks that you see, especially those big rocks, because you don't want to trip on them when you're playing. So that was our warm-up, and that's how I grew up. So for me, that idea of coming to the US or getting accepted for a university or high school or boarding school and playing soccer at a grass field was what did it. So little me, 15-year-old, sitting on the edge of my bed thinking, how can I become a pro? So the first thing that I did is I went to my parents and said, hey guys, like, I think I need to move. And both were a little bit surprised and said, but where do you want to go? And I was like, I think I want to go to the US. I want to practice my English. I want to improve it. And I want to, one day, hopefully, become a professional soccer player. And it seems like there's a path from playing for a college or university and then becoming a pro. So fast forward to today, what brought me to Austin were, amongst many reasons, some of the factors that might have you here today. One of them being okay, takes a while, but we got it. So one of it being the economy. As I mentioned before, I lived and worked in Silicon Valley. Specifically, I went to school in Atherton, which is a small town between Palo Alto and Redwood City, right there in the heart of Silicon Valley. And at that time, I was like, okay, this is a great town to be at. I'd love to stay, but just the prices were too high. Buying a house was expensive. So I was like, what's this other place in the world that it's attracting top-tier talent and that has the possibilities of becoming a hub of innovation and technology? So that was one of the main reasons why I moved here. Another reason was, so the culture, right? How many of you feel you understand what the term culture means? Like, any of you all can take a guess what culture is? Or how you define culture? Food, language, religion, okay. A way of living, okay. So when we think of Silicon Valley and when we think about what makes Silicon Valley the place that it is, it's a culture, right? It's all about the people. It's all about that power of connection, that not knowing who is going to be next to you when you sit and grab some coffee or when you go to a restaurant, you know? I have so many of these stories that have happened to me when I studied in Silicon Valley and when I went there to visit, of meeting people that I never thought I was going to meet at the random places that, that I didn't even think I would meet someone there. Last trip I did there, do any of you follow like the Web3 projects, NFTs, or anything like that? So Bored Apes. Bored Apes is like a very popular project. I was sitting there having sushi, and then one of the guys who owns like over 20 apes just right next to me at the sushi bar, and I'm like, hey, are you aboard Abe? It's like, yeah, we connected. He spoke Spanish. His family was from Guatemala, and we struck a conversation, and we still talk today. So it's like one of those encounters that make Silicon Valley a great place for culture. And I see that happening here in Austin as well. I think one key aspect of why Austin is becoming similar hub like Silicon Valley is because of culture. You know, you're all here today looking for networking, looking for learning something. Hopefully, you can get some insights of that today. Okay, so oh, I think it's twice. Okay, the next thing is growth. So one of the things that surprised me while I was living in Silicon Valley, it's like that growth mindset. And I see that happening in Austin today as well. Like there's so many companies that are moving here, their headquarters, their offices, hiring, and they're looking for talent. And because that's because they want to grow, right? So growth, it's another key aspect of what kind of it's bringing people and driving people here, or at least drove me here to Austin. Okay. Oh, okay. So Silicon Valley, when I first heard this term, I thought it was gonna be something similar to like this picture or Las Vegas, where there's like a strip and you have all the casinos line up, or in Silicon Valley you have all the tech companies in the same row. So it turns out it's nothing like that, right? You get there and like there's some offices here, some offices there. You pretty much have to drive everywhere, but what makes it very unique and interesting is that in this very small space, there's so much innovation happening and there's so much talent in there creating some of the products that we use every day. And you're starting to see this here in Austin. Anyone here work for like a big tech company? Like Gerardo mentioned, I used to work for Meta, WhatsApp. Anyone from Meta or anyone from Dell, HP? Yeah. So you guys know like that there's so much activity and growth happening here as well, just like Silicon Valley. Like people are interested in moving here because some of the reasons that I was mentioning. So yeah, I think when we talk about mindset and when we talk about the things that make Silicon Valley what it is, it's not the fact that all the offices are in one street or that they're all somewhat connected, but it's the people that is there that is thinking and talking about growth, that is thinking and talking about culture, and that is thinking and talking about how to improve certain areas of our daily lives. So, oh, I'll tell you a little bit about myself now. So I was born and raised in Mexico, as I mentioned, from this town called Chihuahua. And growing up was a lot of fun. I did not have a Chihuahua, but this is what a Chihuahua gift looks like. And yeah, I think for me, when I arrived to Silicon Valley, I was like, I didn't even know what was happening there. You know, I got there in 2005, and I was like, I was there to play soccer. I ended up getting a scholarship to play there. I played there 4 years, and that was very fun. That was very exciting, and that's something that I enjoy and some memories that I cherish to today. So my first job out of college was with a professional soccer team, the San Jose Earthquakes. I was selling tickets and I was doing partnerships and sponsorships, so nothing tech related. But you know those encounters and those things that happen in Silicon Valley and in here of when you meet people, like I met Gerardo in Techqueria. I met another person who was an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley trying to raise capital for his company. So I told him, you know, like I want to get into tech. I'm working for a professional soccer team. I wasn't playing, although that would have been great. I told him, like, how can you connect me, or who can you connect me to so I can get a job in tech? And he told me, well, I'm so happy that you decided to move to the tech side, and I'll be happy to connect you to my boss, who at that time was leaving Google and starting his own company for online video streaming. So I was like, oh, that's great. So that's another thing that I saw that happened in Silicon Valley, and the mindset from people there that I see here as well is like people are willing and able to help you. Like you just have to be honest, and you just have to be direct as to what your needs are, and most likely people will lend you a hand, will help you, especially if you put in the work or hopefully help them before that or after. So I discovered that part of the Silicon Valley mindset also included access. So the access that you can have to people, the access that you can have to companies. So through this friend, I met the owner of a company who was a startup, that was a startup at this time, that kind of pretty much gave me access and hired me to work and do sales for him across Latin America. And when I got hired, I remember my first thought or my first feeling was, okay, he told me you have to learn how to sell, right? And you have to learn how to sell in Latin America. And I was like, but what do I have to learn, right? Like, where do I start? Have any of you been in that position where you're giving like a task or a new project and it's like, just do it, right? And you're like, okay, but where do I begin? Like, how do I start? So that same feeling I had at that time, and I was like, okay, this is great, but how do I get started, right? And the first thing that I did is I picked up a book in sales that is still relevant for me today. It's called The Psychology of Selling. And at that time, I wasn't very fan of psychology. I haven't studied psychology before. But after grabbing that book, I was like immersed. I was like, this is awesome. Like, if you're able to figure it out, not why people like not why people like to be sold, but why people buy, that'll give me an edge over others, my competition, and give me an ability to sell anything to anyone, right? So the moment that I picked up that book, I was like, okay, I'm learning so much already. Now I want to put it into practice. It took me a while, but after 3.5 years of doing sales every day, traveling through Latin America, selling a technology, like this was pre-Netflix, right when YouTube was getting popular, that I was like, okay, I've learned so much. It took me a while, but I've learned so much. I was successful at selling. First, I was creating pipeline for my account executives, and then I was an account executive myself. So that was very powerful, like the ability of going into a place, learning and experiencing. And I think that's part of what makes Silicon Valley and now Austin a great place. Is like people are coming here to practice and to are fearless of failure, right? Like failure, it's just getting closer to success, more so than something that it's frowned upon or something that you wouldn't want to happen for you. So another part of the Silicon Valley mindset that I learned that I think it's very prevalent here as well is innovation. Anybody here wants to take a guess or wants to share what innovation means to them?
Different mindset.
Okay, different mindset. And how do you create a different mindset?
You surround yourself with people that don't think like you.
Okay, that's great. Surrounding yourself with people that don't think like you. Anyone else? So how do you innovate when you're thinking of, okay, I want to build an idea, I want to create something new. How do you get unstuck and kind of like bring that new idea to the world?
Think about new possibilities.
Okay, think about new possibilities. Also think about like the things that people complain about or get angry about, like things that may be a pain or an issue for folks. So I think this is key towards like having and breathing in the Silicon Valley mindset and bringing it to Austin, Silicon Hills, or anywhere in the world. And to innovate, you steal, right? This book, has anyone read this book? Still like an artist? Okay, so it's an amazing book. It changed my whole perspective on what creativity means. So instead of thinking of, okay, how do I innovate? And you think and think and think, it's like, okay, how can I innovate? How can I get better? You just go out there, live the world, and steal the ideas that you like. And then you put them together, right? So when you come across something a new idea or something that you like, you think, you do this approach. Is it worth stealing? If it's yes, you take it. If it's not, you leave it. And then you go back to the next thing. And once you start accumulating all of these ideas, you'll be able to innovate and you'll be able to create something that doesn't necessarily didn't exist, but it's a combination of the things that existed that you build on your own based on all of these experiences and all these ideas that you've seen. So this is a great book. It was written by an author here in Austin, and I highly recommend it. It's written in a very like easy to way, easy to read way, and it's also an Audible. So if you're into that, you can download it. So once you've innovated, and once you have that mindset of innovation, once you've opened yourself to new ideas, once you uncover like issues and pain points that people have, and once you looked for ideas that are out there and you put them together and created your own, even though all of these ideas already existed, you have to communicate them, right? So how you communicate an idea, it's key. And that was one of my, probably the most important learning that I had when I was living and studying in Silicon Valley. It's like communication, it's everything, right? If you're not able to communicate the project that you're working on or the idea that you have or the company that you're building, nobody's gonna want to invest, nobody's gonna want to work for you. So it's very important that you communicate. And for this, what do we need to communicate? Our voice, right? How many of you like your voice? So when you send a voice note or when you hear yourself on the phone or you see yourself on a video, you say, oh my God, I have an amazing voice. Any? No one? No? That's impressive. So I didn't like my voice either. But recently, I took a workshop on my voice, and I fell in love with it. It's the best $50 investment that I've ever made. It was $50, yeah, I was surprised. I was like, this is great. And I don't know why most people don't like their voice. So it was a workshop on finding out more about my voice. And it's given by this great voice coach who like just dives deeper into like the origin of our voice. He talks into how we have different types of voices. And once I fell in love with my voice, I saw the world differently, because I was like, okay, I love hearing myself, then others most love hearing me, you know? So it changed my whole perspective, and I was like, I cannot believe I've gone through life 35 years without investing in the one asset that I have to do everything, right? Which is my voice. It seems so silly, and I couldn't believe why I haven't thought about this before. And I'll try to wrap up like the highlights of that workshop and why that workshop mattered. But essentially, it's like recognizing that you have a voice is super powerful, and that you have an amazing voice, because all of you here are building your companies, are working for a company, and like we were saying, like part of that mindset starts with innovation, and part of innovation is built with communication, and communication starts with our voice. So we have to love our voice. And so I'm a big seller now of this workshop. No, I'm joking. I'm a big proponent of falling in love with our voices, and how you fall in love with your voices. And if you take one thing and one thing only, and this was the highlight of the 6-hour workshop that I took. When you go home tonight, sit down and write a letter to your voice. This is how you will fall in love with your voice. I guarantee, if you go home and do this and you don't fall in love with your voice, you come back to me and you'll get your money back. And I'll ask for the beer that you drank. But anyhow, do this, and tomorrow you'll be a different person. It's a very silly exercise, but it works. And after that, you will establish this communication with your voice. Once you establish this communication with this voice in this letter, make sure you thank her, make sure you tell her everything you don't like about it, but make peace with your voice. Like at the end, the objective of this exercise is to make peace. And once you make peace with your voice and you find your voice and you think your voice is amazing, shout out to my voice coach, you're gonna be able to accomplish much more, and you maybe accomplish the same things, but with this one asset that we all have, or most people have, that it just makes things easier as far as innovation, communication, and so on. So another key aspect of the Silicon Valley mindset and migrating these to Silicon Hills is recycling our ideas. So we talked about, okay, how do I create a new idea? I steal ideas from others, and then I create my own. I communicate them, then with my voice, and then once an idea works or doesn't work, I need to recycle those ideas. So it's very important to share failures. There's a community from a Mexican girl called Fuck Up Nights. Shout out to them, but I love them because they only give talks, and entrepreneurs who have only failed are allowed to talk. They might have other successes, but they're not able to share those. They only have to talk about the reasons that I fail and why they fail, right? Because you see a lot of entrepreneurs and executives talking about their successes, but not so often you come across people that are humbled and recognize to and are able to recognize that they fail. So they share their failures, and that's very important. Obviously, share your successes as well. And at the end of the day, having that mindset is all about recycling what's working and what's not. All right, so we've gone for about 20 minutes now. Back to Austin. I think we are positioned in an amazing place. I fall in love with the culture. I've loved what's happening here. I think there's a ton of innovation. The place that we're in right now, it's a hub for innovation here in Austin. So we're here, we're now, what do we do next, right? I think it's very important to keep some of the things that I mentioned, but if you keep anything, make sure you go on and do that letter to your boys and fall in love with it. And with that, I'll open it up for questions and see if anybody wants to ask anything.
Can you maybe recite some of the poetry or the letter to your voice that you made?
It's actually like, it depends on how creative you are, right? I'm more into like the comedy side than the poetry side. And I just started like, dear boys, I thank you for 35 years that you served me, and that I just didn't know you were there actually, and I didn't like you so much. So it's like silly like that, but it's just like a simple exercise that allows you to say, okay, now if I didn't like you, now I told you I didn't like you, so now let's make peace and let's work together. And at the end, I told her like, hey, I need you to help me get what I want. I need you to help me, like whatever it is that I was working at that time. I think at that time was interviewing, so I was like, hey, you're key for this process, right? So make sure that you're ready, you wake up early, and that you are prepared. Yeah. If you take that one from this talk, I think it'll be a success. Anything else? Comments, questions, feedback? Yeah.
What do you say to people that you meet in Austin that are angry that you're bringing a culture to Austin that they didn't like from Silicon Valley because they felt it should stay there? Like they wanted to keep Austin a certain type of culture and they feel like it's changing too quickly or too much.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I have not had that experience where someone tells me, like, what are you doing? Like, go back to where you belong or whatever, right? Like, first of all, I'm not from Silicon Valley, right? I'm originally from Mexico. I was in Silicon Valley for 6 years, and I didn't move straight from Silicon Valley to Austin. I went back to Mexico and then here. So I haven't had that come across. I've kind of heard some comments around that topic. It's like people from California are driving the prices higher or things like that. I honestly don't get into it, like don't get too involved or get too intertwined that. I think for me, it's like I'm all about diversity and inclusion, and one of the things that I've driven at work is like how can we bring more Hispanos and Latinos to the tech companies, right? I led for 2 years Latin at WhatsApp, which was a community that when I started it, we were 50. When I left, we were 500. And we were all about increasing the Latino and Hispanic participation. So whether that's bringing people to Austin or to Houston or to Dallas or wherever in the U.S., I think it's more about how we are a community that embraces everyone. And I think people here in Texas are great. Like I love my neighbors, I love my community, I love my city, I love everything about it. I've not come across anyone that has kind of like led me to believe differently. But it's a good point. Yeah, so that's a great question. What was my role? I'll repeat this for the folks on the stream. So, what was my role for WhatsApp and Facebook? It was actually my first non-sales role. I led the payment operations for WhatsApp in different countries. Towards the end, I was responsible for Brazil and India for the customer operations segment. And yeah, before that, it was all sales roles up until that time. It was really fun. So think of it like Venmo meets WhatsApp or PayPal inside of WhatsApp. So in Brazil and India, you're able to send payments to people or pay businesses. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I have one question though. So you went from being a soccer player, that's what you wanted to be as a kid, but you're going to playing soccer.
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden you said, well, I want to get into tech. So tell us about what made you decide to go from playing soccer. Did you want to get into sales and that got you into tech? Or did you say, I just want to get into tech?
Yeah, I'm glad that you're bringing this up. I think that part was a bit confusing on my presentation. So the question was, why did I go into tech after wanting to be a professional player, soccer player? So the straight answer was I needed to earn money. So becoming a soccer player takes time, and the path for me wasn't that carved, or I didn't know anyone who has gone from like being in Mexico to becoming a pro. Now, knowing what I know now, knowing that like the teams host like open tryouts and that you can have an agent and that you can participate in different clubs, probably the story would have been different. But I also think that growing up, because I was tall and I was scoring a lot of goals, my level of like soccer player was up there. Like I was amongst the best. When I went to high school, I kind of like started dropping a little bit. And then in college, I was definitely not, I was below average. And that was just like the nature of how the sport is played here, but also how like my game, especially my mind game wasn't there. So I remember I was gonna go and score a goal, no keeper, and I'll just hit the post, but open goal, you know? And I was like, why is this happening to me? Like, why I cannot just score? Later in life, I realized that my mental game was as important or more important than my actual skills. So the reason, like your straight answer is like my mind game wasn't quite there, my level wasn't the best, and I just knew that being in Silicon Valley, like I could take advantage of the opportunity of going into tech, start to earn good money, and just focus on that. Yeah, it was part of it location, part of it that I have already graduated, that I've worked for the Earthquakes. That it was very funny actually when I was working for the Earthquakes for the front office. Some of my friends will be the actual players that have graduated, that happen to be at a different school, and that we were picked up by the MLS Combine. So the Major League Soccer in the U.S. every year hosts like a combine, which is like they bring the best players from the different universities and coaches, and the agents pick the players there, and then some of them go to the draft. So some of my friends that were in the combine and that were in the draft were like, man, I cannot believe I'm a soccer player. Like I never wanted to be there. Like I saw myself working for a tech company. So kind of like our roles were embedded. I was like, what do you mean? Like I'm playing FIFA with you in the game, and you said that this is something that you didn't think of. Like for me, it was crazy, right? But just like the nature of where they were geographically and the skills that they had and how they managed to become pros and kind of like the talent and the level mental game that I had. Did I respond to your question? Yeah? Más o menos.
You mentioned community and network. If you were to start searching for a job or an opportunity, how will you start having like 15 over 10 years of experience?
I just found out. So I was part of the meta layoffs from April of this year. That's crazy because I just became a dad 7 months ago for my first child. Shout out to Isabella when you see this. I love you. And so I found out I was going to be a dad on a Wednesday. I get laid off. No, got laid off on a Wednesday, and then I found out I was going to be, or we found out that we were going to be parents on a Thursday, right? So that was crazy. And I was like, okay, I need to figure things out because we have a baby on the way, and things are about to get real very soon, right? So to be honest, I just embraced the fact that I was unemployed. It wasn't the first time that I've been laid before, and no, I have not been laid out of many companies, but just a couple. And I think the first time is the hardest. So if you've just been laid off, or if you were laid off, and you're going through a harsh time, I just think that things are gonna get better. And I just didn't let my job define me. I think that's a very important piece, especially if you've been laid off for the first time. I think we are used to like thinking that, or I was thinking that I was my job and that my job was me, right? And I think decoupling those two and thinking, okay, that was me working and this is me now. Like I think that going back to that mental game, it's very strong. And then the second thing, it's like, to be honest, I applied to over 200 job posts. So the market there, if any of you are looking for a job, no, or all employed or have their company. So the market there, it's tough. You know, it's a tough landscape, and a lot of people were part of the layoffs in the hundreds of thousands of people. So finding a job is not easy. Out of those 200 applications that I sent, around 20 of them were referrals, and from those 20 referrals, 5 of them were interviews. So if you start to break down the numbers, from those 200 applications that I did, or 180 that I did, I probably got like 2 interviews. So I think if I were to give any suggestions or recommendations as to how to get a job, is like referrals are a must. Like that's how you get in front of recruiters. That's how you make sure that your resume gets seen. Because I think I have like a good background and good experience and good skills, and that I could bring on like a lot for a company. I think it's just the fact that I was not getting noticed on all of these roles that I was just applying by myself, you know? So yeah, referrals and just staying positive, knowing that being unemployed or transitioning from one job to another, it's something that takes anywhere between 1 to 6 months, you know? So just embracing the process, keep on applying, and just knowing that something's gonna line up and come up great. I knew I wanted to go back to sales, so I'm really glad that I chose Cloudflare, and that Cloudflare chose me to to hire me and to do sales work for them. Yeah, but good question.
Have you become a big fan of Austin FC?
Yes, I actually work for them during the games. So if you are on the VIP, no, I'm all around the stadium. So when I was on this process that I was unemployed, I was like, okay, maybe I need to go back to that one job that I love, that I will pay to do, right? Like, so when I was working for the Earthquakes, I remember I was fresh out of college. I was playing FIFA with the guys that were on FIFA. I was selling tickets. I was like just living the dream, you know, in Silicon Valley, not in the tech scene, but I was like, maybe I have to reconnect and go back to that. So I applied to Austin FC, and they hired me like right on the spot. I remember the person that interviewed me was like, Victor, but why? I was like, what do you mean, why? It's like, why do you want to work here? It's like, it just makes me happy, you know? And she was like, I mean, if that's what's it for you, I'll hire you. It's just know that it's not like a high-paying job. You're not a full-time employee. Like, you're just going to be coming here during the games to make sure people are having a great time. I was like, that's what I want to do, right? So, yeah, I actually, another Austin FC story of how much I love the team, it's when the team has just announced that the stadium was being built, another past story. When I was at the Earthquakes, I was like, okay, how can we bring more people from our community, Hispanic and Latino, to the games? And I created La Doce de San Jose, which was inspired by Boca Juniors La Doce, which is one of the biggest and loudest and rowdiest community groups for soccer in the world. So I created La Doce de San Jose. I went to the owners of the San Jose Earthquakes and told them, hey, I need a section in the stadium, which turned out to be Section 12, and where we can put in like our people, right? It's like, what do you mean our people? Yeah, we want to bring the drums, the matracas, the sombreros, and we just want to have a good time. We want to make it family friendly and things like that. So I had that experience. I was selling tickets to them, and some of the other supporters groups were like, oh, that's a conflict of interest. Like, what are you trying to drive this new group? It's like, you only would care about selling tickets. And I was like, no, guys, like, I'm doing this because I really care. So it was kind of like a rough patch, but at the end, it happened. And having that experience when the team announced that they were coming here, I was like, okay, it's my chance to, outside the Austin FC now, do something for the community. So I joined Los Verdes. Shout out to my Los Verdes friends as well, which is the supporters team for Austin FC. And at that time, we were probably close to 100 people. Now they're in like the thousands. So yeah, I bought season tickets. I go there, and when I'm not working, I'm singing. So yeah, big fan of the team and what they're building. Yeah. Do you go to the games?
I have been to some games last year,
Okay.
but then this year I think they are not doing that well.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to sit Austin FC watch FC lose, Austin FC lose. So yeah, so no, not this year.
Yeah. No, next year for sure will to be a good time. I think it's always a good time. I think La Murga, which is the band, has done an amazing job. Los Verdes, like that. There's now over 15 chants that they've created, and like they're people like community inspired. So I've sat in many different areas. I've worked as well in different areas, and my favorite part of the stadium continues to be the section with the supporters. Super family friendly, super loud, super cool. Lots of water, hopefully. Cool. I know I'm keeping you from getting more beers, but any last comments, questions, thoughts, ideas, innovations? So yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So, what are my future goals, plans going forward? Question for the audience here. Um, so, in this process of unemployment, uh, I picked up this boys workshop, which was great. I gave you the secret now of how to make, how to love your voice. But I also became a certified coach for life and personal branding. I've always been a huge fan of coaching others, mentoring others, advising others. I actually didn't know the difference between a coach, a mentor, and an advisor. Any of you know the difference between those three? So an advisor is someone that you have there at your company or that helps you make better decisions, right? Not necessarily have they done it, but they can advise you of something. They can give you their, it's like a formal opinion. Like it's something, not just a friend like giving you like a comment, but it's someone more formal. A mentor is someone who has done something that is helping you achieve the same thing that you want. So like if I've raised capital and you're looking to raise capital, you come to me and I mentor you and I tell you what have I done. It's something I actually do. In a coach, which this blew my mind because how many of y'all, when you hear the word coach, kind of like you get that cringe as like, oh, another guy trying to sell me a course online of something that I most likely never gonna use, never don't need, right? But what surprised me is that a coach is someone who has the tools to help you find the answers of the questions that you have. So whether that's raising capital or any move that you're doing in your life, like a coach will not advise you and will not mentor you. But it's like if you had like a plumbing problem and then you hire a plumber, the plumber is gonna bring his tool set, he's gonna look, and then it's gonna make adjustments. And then once the plumber leaves, your water faucet is gonna work how it's supposed to, right? So it's not gonna be telling you, hey, you should open here, you should close here, and then when you're not using it, you should kind of like turn the tube this way around. So it's someone that has been equipped and that is certified to help you find answers and help you find the way. So my coaching practice is doing very well. I just fell in love with the process. I think it's probably the one job or the one thing that I've done that has allowed me to connect with people at another level, because one of the first exercises that you do, it's like you help people find their purpose. So we're all built with like a mission or purpose in life, and when when we're younger, we know like like I want to be a professional player, but then you grow up and you end up selling in sales in tech. But I think we all have a purpose, we all have a mission, we all have a reason, and not many people take time, and I certainly didn't for so many years, to know, okay, what's my purpose? Like, why am I here? And I know it sounds kind of like weird to talk about this topic, but I definitely want to use this to create awareness and say, if you haven't found your purpose or if you haven't found your mission, I think this is a great way. And it doesn't matter if you are working in tech or an entrepreneur or unemployed, like just knowing and being able to contextualize and verbalize that for me has been super powerful and life-changing. So that's another thing that I'm doing. This is my second month at Cloudflare. Shout outs to my Cloudflare friends, cloudflare.com. We focus on everything that you need for the cloud, from delivery to security. So I'm gonna be there as well. And then, I mean, I'm part of communities. I'm part of two investment funds. One of them is, both of them are super cool, but one of them it's I'm scouter. So essentially what I do is like they tell me, Victor, this year you have X amount of dollars. You just have to go out and find the best entrepreneurs that you have. And we'll invest our money, but you'll have their upside. So before I was using my money to do angel investment. Now I have their money and I'm just talking to entrepreneurs and meeting new companies and seeing if they're worth investing. And then with the other one, that's for H20 Capital Innovation. It's a $70 million fund, and part of that fund it's going on to like the scouter activity. And then the other one is called Angel Hub Mexico. And on that, I am an ambassador, which basically means that this is Mexico's biggest angel investors club, over 150. And there, what I do is I help them bring more angel investors from Mexico or across Latin America or US, and then I also create pipeline for them to invest. So among those four things, and then I'm a father now, so I'm also planning on being a great dad.
So when you do coaching, do you sell it like 6 months, 2 months? Do you give certificates for 3 hours? How do you do coaching? How do you convince someone maybe they need coaching but they don't know they need it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question the answer is how do you essentially package the coaching? Like, is it sessions? And how do you convince them that they need it if they don't even know that they might? So I think coaching is for everyone, or being a coachee, it's a great thing for everyone. Going back to my experience, if I would have had a coach when I was playing soccer, like I know for a fact now that my journey would have been so much different. And how do I package it? I'm still figuring it out. I just got certified recently. The way that I do it today is we have a 15-minute session, and in that 15 minutes, I can walk you through kind of like what coaching is. You can see, okay, this is for me, this is not for me now. And then if you like it, you just do 1-hour sessions, like as frequent as you need. Like the process of life and personal branding, it starts with like, okay, finding, or I wouldn't say finding, is like connecting with your purpose, connecting with your mission, and then integrating that mission to whatever it is that you're building or doing today. And then from there is how do you communicate it to the world, right? So after this work that I've done, I found out that my mission or my purpose in life is to help others. And I just get so much energy, and I just love helping people get what they need and succeed. So I'm focused right now on helping founders lead with impact, and I'm also sharing kind of like my journey to drive innovation in the world. And those findings and that ability to kind of explain kind of who am I, what do I do, it was through this process that I kind of reconnected with it and say, okay, this is it. This is what I feel comfortable. This is what I believe on, and this is kind of like the stamp that I want to leave in others after they meet me or after we have a coaching session. Is like, oh, this guy is like legit. Like he cares for me. He cares about me, and he's helped me be successful. You know, like that one thing that a coach can never do is tell their coachees what to do, which is the most difficult thing. Because when you think about when you're talking to someone and you think you may know the path or the way, the easiest way to say is like, oh, come on, you don't see it? Like, you should do this, right? Or you should do that. But here, the approach is different. It's like, how can I help you find the answer instead of me guessing or thinking that that may be the best answer for you? So I don't think I'm gonna, and I may look at this video later and regret I said this, but I don't think I'm gonna be one of those coaches that do like massive coaching for folks, because I just like that one-on-one approach and that ability to connect with people. It's probably not as profitable, and it's probably not as scalable, but it's just like the process of it is pretty cool. And in order to become a coach, I had to go through the same process that the coaches go through. So I exactly know the same things that my coaches are going through, you know? So, but great questions. Yeah, like part of my, um, part of the things that I want to focus on is like having this dialogue and in this conversation around how to make coaching more accessible and for people to know kind of like what coaching is for me. You know, there's other coaches there that might be doing different things. I don't know them personally. Cool. Any other questions, comments, concerns, feedback, thoughts on the YouTube stream? All right. Cool. Well, thank you guys for coming. I do appreciate the time. We went almost an hour, so thank you for being here tonight. It means the world to me. And yeah, thank you, Gerardo, for inviting me. Techqueria for hosting. Austin Beer Works for the beer. And look forward to connecting with you all.
Yeah, and now we're in the networking section of this. There's again Austin Beer Works beer here. There's two kinds, really good, really nice. And thank you, Victor. It was amazing. Thank you for joining this live stream and everyone attending here. We'll see you all next year. And if you're not a member, talk to me, please. Thank you, everyone.